It's Cardboard Time, episode number 44, and I'm your host, Arwen Cathkey. And on this episode, we'll be talking with Jamie again about some games that we've played lately. And we also have an interview on the second segment with Jim Reed of Ravenwood Castle and formerly The Malted Meeple. Jamie, welcome back.
Hey, thank you. It's good to be back.
Good to have you back. So you have been playing a ton of stuff, so I'm excited to catch up with you.
So many games.
I'm really excited to hear about some of them, and I actually did deliberately have you save a couple of them for later because you have been a machine lately when it comes to playing stuff. Unfortunately, I haven't been quite as good, but we'll get into that in a minute.
I'm just making up for what you're missing out on. Like Origins awoke something in me, and I'm hoping that the space between GenCon and PAX will still keep that fire going. But I think the two cons being so close together is really a motivating factor for me. So we'll see.
Well, you've also got another con potentially in there, which I think we can discuss. Sin City Con in October, perhaps.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. We did talk about that, didn't we?
I'm not sure. I think we're still going to be there. I'm not positive about that, but I'm leaning towards going there. The hotel room seemed relatively reasonable, and the convention vibe seemed pretty good. Adam from Eat Lunch and Board Game is also going to be there, so I would love the opportunity to meet him. So I think that's kind of a go.
Okay.
Plus you have Jungle Gyms as well. So, I mean,
yeah, it's gonna have to be something we do then, I guess. You know I'm down for cons.
I know.
You don't have to convince me. I thrive on cons.
I am there with you. I'm at the point that, I've got Dragon Con at the beginning of September. I've got Gen Con at the beginning of August, and I now have Sin City Con at the beginning of October, and then PAX U at the beginning of December. So I guess I have to find something for the beginning of November.
We'll make our own con. How's that sound?
Oh, that sounds perfect to me. Let's do that. So let's get into the beer of the day. And today's beer of the day is, for me, the Dragon's Juice Box by Ohio Brewing Company. There are a lot of sours on the menu there. I went to the Cuyahoga Falls location. This one had strawberry, watermelon, and coconuts. And I got this one when we stopped there before the Italian festival that was going on downtown. Not usually a huge sour fan myself, but this definitely had a nice balance between sour and sweet, with each of the flavors really combining nicely together. I gave this one a 3.75. Well, Jamie, it's time to check my shelf of shame. And it is at 159. It's down one. If you notice on the show notes, there was a new acquisition that I had.
I did see that. And I also got two new acquisitions that I'm going to have to tell you about.
Ooh. Well, I'll go through mine first.
Okay.
And then I want to hear about yours.
Okay.
So my new acquisition was Three Sisters, which I've also played.
I actually just played that again this Tuesday.
Ooh. I'm still thinking about those beans.
I am hooked on that game.
Those beans and those pumpkins and those corn.
And the corn. And the hyacinths and the tulips and everything else. But,
Exactly. So much going on with all 2 pages of, things to mark off and combos to get and everything. So the other game that I played was Anno 1800. That's another one that I'm going to have to talk about. That one I did get to the table solo. I do want to get it out with some other people, just so I can get an opinion of the solo versus the multiplayer experience. But so far, so good. There's a great solo campaign that was produced in German for the game, and it really serves as a nice introduction to the mechanics and kind of eases you in a little bit. So definitely interested to get this one out to the table with others. Jamie, what were your acquisitions that came in?
So my shelf of shame continues to grow. I think I tweeted about earlier this week. I had kind of a manic reorganization of my collection of games. We got rid of some bookshelves that we were using in our living room for my games, and I finally committed to a dedicated shelf in my basement. And it's kind of a good homage because when I was younger, we used to be known as the house that had the wall of games, the Great Wall of Games, we used to call it. I have now started my own. And the two newest bricks in that Great Wall of Games are Fog of Love and Machikoro.
So Machikoro, I wasn't a huge fan of.
I have not played it, but I got it for free with Fog of Love. So,
oh, perfect. Fog of Love, you're gonna have to let me know about because that's one that I've heard mixed. I've heard some really, really good things, but I've also heard that it can be kind of a damper on some relationships if you play it with your significant other and there's some, potential topics that might be a little bit iffy. I think with, you and Rachel, I think you're fine.
I think so too. I'm struggling to remember the name of the game that we played at Origins that was similar.
Decorum.
Yes, Decorum. I wonder if it'll be another Decorum situation.
I don't know. I mean, it's the same company that produced it.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's
that's
Floodgate
right.
that did both of them.
That's right. That is so funny. So, they're just going to get known as the company that makes games that makes people break up. I don't want to spread any rumors.
No, but I mean, that's how it happens.
They've got like a cute B game too, so it can't be all bad, right? Hopefully.
Yeah. Oh, they also did Holy, which was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, they got a lot going on. They got a lot of nice stuff going on.
Yeah, they do. Why don't we move along to our review segment? We do have a lot of topics to talk about today, and we've got 4 games that we're going to cover. The first one, we both want to talk about this, and this is Burncycle. Burncycle plays from 1 to 4 players in 45 to 180 minutes, designed by Josh J. Carlson and Shannon Wedge.
Yay, Shannon.
Hey, Shannon. We know Shannon. Shannon's good people. So, artist is Anthony Letourneau and Yoann Bossonnet. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but also published by Chip Theory Games. Burncycle is a puzzly infiltration game for 1 to 4 players that puts you in command of a team of robots in the far future. Their mission: taking down evil human-run corporations responsible for subjugating AI under their heel. Your team arrives at each corporate headquarters and must sneak inside, shutting down the company's physical operations as well as their circuitous digital networks. As you search rooms and advance to higher floors, you'll be rewarded with new items and abilities, but you'll also be challenged by threatening guards, fatal viruses, and the architecture itself, which was built to fight off robotic intruders. Key to the solo and cooperative experience is the idea of creative action sequencing. During each round of play, all players will contend with randomly drawn set of programming directives, which tell them in what order their bots are allowed to take physical, digital, and command actions. Players can choose to skip over directives at the cost of having an incomplete turn, or they can disobey the directives by paying costly action dice. The best players, however, find a way to work within the Burncycle, essentially organizing their actions so that they benefit the team while staying within the directive order. Each of the corporate headquarters in the game uses a unique neoprene layout on a larger mat, changing the geography of the game to suit your target. Each CEO also has at their disposal a special threat meter, which will trigger new obstacles for your robots as time runs out. If you don't complete the mission quickly, you may end up leaving bots behind, the victims of immobilizing power drains or destructive counter-hacking. Your team wins the game if you complete the objectives on every floor without losing your captain or maxing out your threat level. So that was a lot. Jamie, I want to go to you first. I want to know what you thought of the game, and then I'm going to follow up with my thoughts.
I love this game. Not a surprise to me. I mean,
no.
Chip Theory Oh man, they make very extensive games. I hate to use the buzzword crunchy because I just feel like so much is lost in that explanation. Unlike other crunchy games that I've played, there is a point where the chip theory games just kind of click. And, like other games, especially recently that I picked up, they're very complicated. And I just feel like they don't hit that same sweet spot of like, okay, I get this now. Like it all makes sense. You start to move through the different components and start to feel like you actually have a hang of it. And this particular one also makes you kind of feel a little bit like an infiltrator, they kind of cheekily call it an office crawler, which I think is such a perfect name for this, but it's hard to understand what that means until you've tried it. But the intro quest that they make for 1 to 4 players is really, really well done in describing the different actions that you can take and how to approach different scenarios. And that's about as far as I got, full disclosure. But that was more than enough for me to get the general gist of the game and be excited to play more. This has got everything that I like. Expanding content constantly. It's basically, it's played, just to capitulate on your explanation, it's played almost in 2 different realms, if that makes any sense. You're infiltrating on the physical level, which is like moving from floor to floor in an office building, but you're also infiltrating at the I guess network level, like technological level, almost is probably a good way to put it, because you're also trying to kind of like work your way around this network grid that isn't part of the main office space, and that also affects your actions and the reactions of the company in game as you do it. So there's the stakes always feel important and high, but like not in an anxiety inducing way, which I think is actually a really hard needle to thread in a game like this. So, I mean, all in all, I really, really enjoyed it. I think it plays really well. I am eager. They kind of like make you pick certain operatives in the starter intro quest thing, and I'm excited to try out the different operatives to the point where, they actually just launched their reprint this week, and with that reprint, they're adding potentially more operatives, which, I have such a hard time controlling the impulse of like buying more content for a game that I have not exhausted the content of, and
it's tough not to though, especially with this.
It is, exactly. So I'm like sitting here trying to decide if I want to do it, and I'm sure talking about it more is just going to make me want to do it more. And I kind of want to bring this to GenCon, but at the same time, it's so heavy.
It is so incredibly heavy. Yeah, any other thoughts before I get into mine? Because I've got a laundry list.
I think just in general, I like it. It's the first kind of game of its type that I've played. So like any glaring issues are going to be more or less like lost from my part, my opinion piece. Because I don't have context, right? So, I like the feel of like the Metal Gear Solid kind of sneaking around sort of thing. And I haven't gotten far enough to the point where this is possible, but I do kind of wish there was a little bit of like potential confrontation that you could engage in.
There is.
There is. Yeah, that's exactly what I figured. But yeah, I mean, all told, I really, really liked it.
Yeah. So do we want to go through the segue? Do we want to explain Burncycle real quick?
Oh my God. I didn't know if we were going to or not, but we might as well.
I feel like we have to, because we have to put this out into the universe, because at some point, somebody's going to ask. I got a text from Roberto Lopez of Sheer Boredom. If you haven't heard of Roberto's content, why are you not going through and listening to my podcast? He was on. Go listen to his stuff. He's fantastic, does some great interviews and some really good content.
He is a lovely human being, and also just recently got married. Awesome. Congratulations,
yes, Roberto and I text back and forth, and he was super excited. We were going to see each other at Origins, and we saw each other as soon as basically we got there. He was one of the first people that we saw, so I was so happy to see him. He texted me the next morning, and we're chatting, and I said, "Is there anything in the dealer's hall that I need to get?" And
I want to add, the reason you were asking this is because as media, we got a small slice of time right at the beginning to kind of run in and get some goodies. So we were trying to kind of get the skinny on, like, what we should rush and get, because in case it would sell out or whatever, So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically Roberto replies back, and he replies Burncycle. And he's like, Burncycle, freaking autocorrect here. So we go in and we get into the dealer's hall, and we're laughing about this in the morning, and we're just, we tell Andrew Chesney, who's also part of Chip Theory, fantastic person. We tell him, what had happened and everything, and he starts laughing, and Jamie looks over, and if you look at the side of the box, the kerning is such that it kind of looks like the box says Bumcycle, which once you see it, you can't unsee it, and everybody's like, oh, that does say Bumcycle, doesn't it?
I see. We're just actively throwing me under the bus here, huh?
Yes. Well, you're the one that noticed it first.
I'm gonna own it. It's a marketing thing. I couldn't not see it.
I absolutely love this game, and I'm going to go into why. And this, heads up for everybody, this is going to be probably at least on my top 10 games of the year list. I don't see anything kind of dethroning it. I don't know where it's going to land on there. And I'll also explain why. But this is definitely high up in the ranking for my games of the year. So kind of a little bit backwards review here. I would describe this as kind of a combination between a Ocean's 11 heist combined with like Mission Impossible sabotage stealth adventure, but with robots. And I like how you talk about Metal Gear Solid.
Yes.
Because it does feel like that, but you're robots. I love the ability, most of all in this game, that you can see what's happening on the board. You can translate that into like story moments, so you can very clearly see, I'm doing this. This is what's happening, like in the story. I'm going and I'm sneaking into this room, and I'm taking my command module from this room to another room, and trying to go and achieve this objective, which I think is amazing. There's few games that I really have the ability to do that, and this was definitely one of those. The robot design was super clever. The way that they've incorporated like a lot of the tech corporations, like Need Chain is very similar to Amazon, and making those references back and forth, I think was really cool. There's a clear Mark Zuckerberg stand-in, which is hysterical to me. But yeah, there's all sorts of little tiny references that some are very blatant and some are, definitely a little bit more hidden, but very hacker culture, very like tech corporation culture. Those little things really stood out to me. I love taking on the role of the plucky hero standing up to the oppressor. I always thought that was fun. That's exactly what you're doing here. Due to how the pegs are split out, I didn't have any color vision accessibility issues. I will say that the blue that were used for the control module and the purple that were used for the player pegs were actually kind of close for me. If those were both player pieces, I definitely would have had a hard time. But they are split out. There's no interaction between the two. They're completely separate. I love the character design in this game. Like, each one feels different. Each one has very unique special abilities and a very big specialty that you kind of know when you're going to use them and how to use them. You're going to gravitate to different parts of the map or one of the two gameplay components that you talked about. Having those special abilities really makes each character feel very unique and different.
And might I add, useful.
Yes.
Like you said, it's kind of like Ocean's 11, and there's never a point where you or even the operative feel like you don't have a place. It's kind of fun because your character tends to have a specialty, and it's fun because as long as you stick to that specialty, obviously you're useful, but outside of that, it doesn't mean that you can't do anything else. And I think that's what's so cool about it, is they've done such a great job of making all those characters unique and useful, which I think is tricky. I think that's real tricky.
Yeah, and there's always more than one way of solving a puzzle, which I think is really interesting. Access was my favorite character. She was best girl. She was great for hacking, and that was one way of going and kind of accomplishing your goals, is going to these terminals and getting these special abilities through hacking. Balancing programming of your burn cycle between the network actions and your regular on-map actions was a fantastic puzzle. And I think that is where this game really differentiates itself from anything else, because you have that programming aspect. You have this ability where you might optimize for the things that you want to do on the map, but that is going to leave your network in kind of a bad situation, and vice versa. It's hard to describe without you actually seeing the game and without that being in front of us, but you have to trust me. It is one of my favorite gameplay mechanisms I've seen this year.
Oh, it's truly unlike anything I've seen before, too.
And especially when it comes to, like, you know, we call it an office crawl or a dungeon crawl or something like that. I think that everything that's going on, and yet how well it's tied together, it just works so incredibly well. That said, the rules overhead is really high. You mentioned the training mission that I think was really well done. It covers a lot. But there's definitely some things that come out throughout the other missions that you need to refer back to the reference material. So I've gone through and I actually finished out that entire 3-level campaign. So I did that, and I did a couple of other scenarios as well. And especially once you got through like the 3-floor campaign, I think it was pretty good to go. But I think the one thing that really I didn't really grasp as a player at the end of that was movement. So how your guards are going to move, how they're going to target people, you know, it was just a little bit nebulous to me, and it could have been just something that I didn't see. That was the one thing that I think people might have a struggle with, is getting this out to the table, getting through that, you know, rules overhead and really dive into the game. Once you do, it's amazing.
Oh, it hums. It like hums.
It really does. And it's got a really good flow to it. It's really relatively easy to manage, but it's just going to take a while to get into it. I think the other thing that might keep people away from it is the large table presence that it has. It's not going to be suitable for small spaces. This is a big experience in a big footprint, and you're going to need a good amount of space to enjoy this. That said, a very deep lore to dive into. You know, as Chip Theory has done with many of their games, they've created a universe and a story and a lore around everything that has to do with this game. How we got to this point, you know, why the bots are doing what they do, and really, you can dive into it if you want. I feel that it makes the game feel more whole, and there's a reason why you're doing what you're doing. You can tie it in more thematically. I'm really enjoying it, but you don't necessarily have to. I just think that it does do a really good job of enhancing the content. One of the last things is that maybe there could have been a small reference sheet or cards like Too Many Bones. New versions of the game will have them. There's some to download if you need them immediately on Board Game Geek. Some people have put them together, but there are reference cards that are coming out with the new versions. There's an opportunity in their new Game Found in order to, if you want to purchase them, you can basically get them at cost. So I thought that was really nice, and it's definitely something that I'll be investing in as well. And there is a absolute ton of mission content in this game. the 45 to 180 minute mark is basically dependent on how many floors you want to play, how deep of a mission you want to get into. So that can vary. You can play something super long, which I did in my first playthrough, and I played through a couple of the shorter ones. So there's plenty to run through here without any sort of expansion content whatsoever, although that is also available. There is a game found for more content as of the release of this episode. Again, this is in the running for my favorite game of the year. Hands down, there's a couple of things that might make me consider something else over it, but I thought that the way that this was designed is brilliant. I really enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed all the interactions and how everything really cohesively comes together as a package. That to me makes this such a excellent game that a lot of care went into, and it was very obvious. I'm sure that this will one day have a box akin to the Too Many Bones treasure trove that's coming in the mail soon. Already getting the expansion content through the game found. So this was a fantastic game.
I need to pull the trigger on that expansion content because I haven't yet, just because I haven't played it much. But I should get it. Yeah. I should get it.
Yeah, I mean, there again is a ton of content that's already out there for it, in the base box, and you can absolutely get away with it. But looking at the content that they have coming out for it, I don't know if I'm going to want to be without it, because some of the characters I can already see, they're going to be awesome to play with. One of them is basically like almost Jedi mind tricking.
Oh,
they're like a propaganda bot. Like, it's just so cool how they've worked this in, and I give Chip Theory a lot of credit for what they've done with this game.
You would think that I would have learned my lesson by not immediately buying those brass minis and missing out on them at Origins. You would think I would learn my lesson.
See, and that's the one thing that I might not add to this game is the brass minis, because they're extra. They are amazing, but you can absolutely get away without them. I would rather have the content.
Maybe you can.
Well, that's the thing.
I've never met a mini I didn't like.
Yeah, that's very true. That's kind of your thing.
It is kind of my thing.
I've heard through the grapevine.
It's kind of my brand,
So that was Burncycle. And Jamie, you've got a game that you want to talk about?
I would love to talk about it. So we decided, I have a group of friends. When I say we, I'm referring to that group of friends that is so kind as to meet with me every week at my shop, and we play a game on Tuesdays. And usually they are bold enough to go through the learning process with me. Typically, I'll watch a video prior to them arriving so that I have a little bit of knowledge of it. But generally speaking, we tend to just dive in and just knuckle down and learn it, which I commend them for, because that is a lot every week. This week, we decided to break out a game that my friend Jesse got for his birthday from his lovely partner called Forgotten Waters. And I had my eye on it when he got it because it looked like a lot of fun. I mean, what could go wrong with a pirate game, right? Like, it's got choose your own adventure elements. There's just a lot to potentially love. And I will say, it was quite a bit of fun. Basically, you have this spiral-bound book that contains maps on which you place cardboard tiles. And you sail from tile to tile on your ship with your crew, and basically just make your way. Well, you kind of complete missions, I guess, as it were, and make your way. In our particular storyline, you make your way from your beginning island to another one, and throughout that process, you're traveling through waters that are completely uncharted. So, there be dragons and all that fun stuff. But each new node that you travel to has an associated, I guess, kind of storyline to it. And the way that storyline is expressed is through their web app, which you can find on their website that, they direct you to with the rules and everything. And it's got this really cool, fully voice acted kind of choose your own adventure style website that is it's just very charming. It's very well done. And, it's kind of like listening to your parents read you a book as a kid, a storybook, because it's all voice acted. And, like we talk to Foreteller, right? So it's kind of, it must be a thing that's kind of catching on, and it's cool to see it in action because I haven't before. And like I said, I haven't been able to play anything with that before, so I can't speak to the quality from a contextual standpoint. But I genuinely thought that it was, well acted. It was kind of on the goofy side, which was fun. It added to the lightness of the game because it wasn't terribly difficult. Each player gets their own unique character to play, but the fun of it is that you have components. So you have a kind of a tearaway paper, what's the word? Like a pad, kind of like you have in cartographers. But each pad, piece of paper has a different archetype on it. And so that's the pirate that you play. And in addition to that, they encourage you to, make up your pirate name. And of course, there's a name generator in the back of the book. Make up the name of your ship and all this other stuff. And the game starts after you do basically a Mad Lib with your pirate's backstory. So it's got this really lighthearted and very well-designed fun aspect to it, but it doesn't feel childish, I guess. Like, I know that's not to say like that childish things are bad or that it takes away from a game in any way. If it is a child's game, I've played plenty of children's games that are wonderful, like Yum Yum Island. I couldn't go a whole episode without mentioning that. But no, genuinely, it was really fun because it sets the tone. And it actually, in those Mad Libs, it encourages you to use... It doesn't encourage you. It actually kind of makes you pick another pirate in the crew that you have some sort of interaction with once you get to that point in your story. So there's always this interactive nature to it, which is really cool. And then finally, the really fun aspect of it is that above your name and your title and everything like that, you have a constellation that has some sort of thematic connection to your character. And for example, my character was the Grifter. And so my constellation was an octopus. And so every time you increase your skills, you have a D&D style skills, basically, that your character starts out with a baseline and they have a cap of how many of any certain skill they can have. So some characters excel at things that others don't and vice versa. Once you hit a benchmark in those skills that you can get by choosing the different activities that you do each time you end up in a new location, it gives you an extra point in that skill. And once you clear these benchmarks, you fill out a slot on your constellation, and it's like connect the dots. After a certain amount of those spots are filled, you get a constellation event, which then taps into one of those storylines that you wrote with that Mad Lib earlier. And it kind of develops your character a little bit more. It gives you a little bit of an edge. Like sometimes you can get treasures that are actually like characteristics that your pirate takes on, like, oh, they now have a really cool facial scar, or like you got a cool haircut and so now you have more swagger or something like that. So there's a lot going on with it, but like it wasn't nearly as intimidating as I thought it was going to be from a learning standpoint. And it also wasn't too hand-holdy with the narration and everything. They truly like do encourage you to make your own choices, and I found myself not wanting to game the game from a role-playing perspective. I found myself really wanting to do the thing that I thought my Grifter pirate would do. And, a lot of times it didn't punish you for making the quote-unquote, like, wrong decision. So, like, the whole thing was just really well designed. I was so pleased with it. I will definitely be playing this again if my friend brings it over. I really enjoyed it.
Was that a Plaid Hat game too? I wanted to say that
it was.
And they are very heavy into the whole thematic storytelling kind of genre. The Dead of Winter with the Crossroads card system. That it kind of, the way that you described it reminded me like, yeah, that was Plaid Hat, wasn't it?
And it was just delightful. It was such a fun game because, like I said, we play, something new every week, and sometimes that can be such a slog, an enjoyable slog, but a slog nonetheless. So it was really nice to break out a game that just sort of guides you through the whole thing, but doesn't make you feel like you're being taken for a ride. I really did enjoy this game, and I was so glad that we got to play it because my friend's been really wanting to get it out since his birthday. So it was nice that we were able to get that to the table, and we really had a great time with it. That was Forgotten Waters.
So up next, I want to talk about Studies in Sorcery. This is a 1 to 4 player game that plays in 30 to 60 minutes, designed by Chris Glane. The artist is Chris Glane and Katie Cow, and published by Weird Giraffe Games. Studies in Sorcery is an engine building and drafting game in which players are trying to complete projects in alchemy, reanimation, and more to finally complete their thesis statement and graduate from the Academy of the Dark Arts. Each field of study at the Academy is different and requires different skills. Alchemy takes time, but can grant you abilities instantly. Reanimation requires just the right ingredients if you want to really impress the professors, and can help you build future projects even faster. Sorcery takes work, but can grant you new abilities depending on the phase of the moon. On their turn, players can choose to scavenge for ingredients or go get more projects to work on. At the end of each round, players can commit their ingredients to projects and hopefully finish the project so they can reap the rewards of a job well done. The game ends after 4 semesters have passed, and players present their projects for review. Choose your thesis and fields of study wisely, and even you can get your degree in darkness. So this one was a review copy of the game from Weird Giraffe Games. And to sum this up, this was probably the cutest game about grave robbing that I've ever seen in my life. The theme itself, like, it's a really dark subject material when you really stop and think about it. Like, you are literally going and robbing graves for bones and stuff like that. But they do it in such a cute way. It's kind of interesting. This is a game about basic order fulfillment. So each order that you're going to fulfill gives you a one-time or perpetual special ability. So you kind of have to balance, what am I going to use to build my long-term engine with, and what am I going to do just to kind of get me some extra stuff right now. I think where this game is really different, and this one really caught my eye, was the push your luck mechanism. This one was no exception for my love of these mechanisms. I feel like it finds its own place in here. This is basically through this graveyard component where you're digging for materials. You have these face down cards. You don't necessarily know what's on those cards, and you turn the first pile over and you see if you want to take it. If you don't want to take it, you put it back, and then you can go on to the next one. But you have to add another face down card to that pile, so your opponents potentially have the ability to grab even more stuff. Where I find that interesting is the ability that you can kind of give your opponents a question of, why did you skip that first one? You know, was it filled with a bunch of junk, or was it just the fact that you didn't need it and it's filled with a bunch of stuff that I really need? I think that mind game that you kind of play with yourself and your opponents is really, really interesting, because you could always say, you know, this isn't good for me for what I want to achieve right now, but I can see something on the board that I could fulfill that would be really good with this combo. So I think that that's where this mechanism really kind of shines. Everything else that's around it is kind of standard. Again, it's kind of standard order fulfillment. You're just taking actions. You're trying to fulfill these orders. That is where it really hit me as like, this is really the sweet spot with this game. I think where some people might have an issue with it is the memory piece. Some people don't deal well with memory games. And I think if you're one that's going to excel in knowing what's been taken, what's been added, what you saw, that's going to give you a distinct advantage over someone who can't remember those things very well. And I think that's going to be, it's going to be an issue. If it's an issue for your group, then it's definitely something you have to contend with. I just might be limited in the groups that I bring it out with. Again, with a lot of weird giraffe games, this is a full game experience at a very small package. They do a really good job of putting a very good game experience, into something that's compact and isn't going to take up a huge amount of space in your house. One other thing that I liked about it is the fact that it's a Harry Potter-esque theme without all the transphobia, and that to me is really cool.
We'd love to see it.
We love to see that. The people at Weird Giraffe Games are really good, and they support the community, and we love supporting them as well. So I was happy to see a game that kind of evoked that theme without necessarily supporting a certain person. And this had no color vision issues either. Again, as I've come to expect from Weird Giraffe, they are very conscious about that. And no color vision issues with this one whatsoever. I did get the opportunity to play this solo as well. It's very easy to manage. There is a little bit of deviation in how it handles from the multiplayer, but it's still quite enjoyable. It's a matter of, the fact is that I don't think you could completely accurately recreate the multiplayer with the solo experience. I think they kind of did the best job that they could with the materials that they had. So this one's sticking around for a while. I'm not sure how often I'll get it out, but I do feel like this is one that I can get out with a lighter crowd without much of an issue. A pretty straightforward teach, straightforward mechanisms. But again, where this really sings is that push your luck mechanism in the graveyard. It's really kind of a cool mechanism, and one that you can play some mind games with your opponent with.
I definitely want to try this one. You're gonna have to bring this one to GenCon.
I'm thinking about packing this one in, and again, it's gonna be easy because it's so small. So that was Studies in Sorcery. And Jamie, the last one that we're going to talk about, I'm kind of jealous that you got to play this. It looks really good. It was a review copy that we got at Origins, and Nita Vetlier came home with me, but the next game went home with you, and you got it out to the table.
Yes, I did. So it was one of those things where, you ever feel like you just get the right game at the right time with the right crowd, and it just kind of, it goes so well that you wonder if it was just the nature of the environment and the tides and all these other factors, or if it's like really truly a good game. I think this one is definitely a little bit of both, because we've come to expect great things from Hatchet games. We had this out with friends of ours that visited from Australia. We haven't seen them in a number of years, and we all went out to a winery together, and it really just felt like the perfect background for this. Maybe not necessarily narratively, but the play was so wonderful, and I'll get into why that is very shortly. But first, I want to explain that this game is really, really unlike anything I've played. I've heard that it's similar to Dixit, although I've not played Dixit. This game is in the palm of your hand, which you will probably get tired of hearing me say, because it is also very important to the core of the instructions of this game. So basically, this game is a lovely little... it's so hard to describe because, like I said, it's very dissimilar to anything I've played before, but essentially you inhabit the role of a grandchild and their grandfather. The grandchild has stumbled across a box of mementos and pictures in the grandfather's attic, and in an effort to help him remember and just sort of like hear the stories that his grandfather has to tell, the child, is trying to reenact those photos to help kind of bring those memories back. So you, as a team, inhabit the role of the child and the grandfather. The child takes the opportunity to use all the little components within the box. So things like a little wooden top and a dart, like you would have in an old dart gun that sticks to the wall, and even a little like piece of fabric and just a couple of other weird odds and ends. You are going to use those components to recreate a picture on a card in the palm of the grandfather's hand. The twist is the grandfather's eyes are closed, and you are going to be doing that twice. So you do one picture and then another photo, all the while the grandfather's eyes are closed. And the third aspect that makes this difficult is that the other team is also watching this process, trying to kind of examine how it might feel to the grandfather and putting their own cards from their hand into the mix. So at the end, the grandfather then has to choose from a total of 8 cards and tries to pick the most accurate one to what he remembers feeling occurring in his hand. It's just so cleverly designed, and I think the strategy behind playing those cards is far deeper than I think I originally gave it credit for, because a lot of times you'll have a hand of cards and nothing seems similar to what the first, action was. But then you'll draw a card after playing your first one. It'll be perfect. And so you can play that on the second round and really just guarantee that they're going to guess the wrong thing, right? There's just a lot of interesting depth to the game, despite how simple it is. I think it's just so fun to play the role of the grandchild and try to think of the more creative ways that you can utilize these materials to make that, to translate that visual to a feeling. And I think it really also serves the narrative behind it as well, because as Danny told us, if you're patient enough, you can arrange all of the photos in the box to put together a storyline of the grandfather's life. And there's all these little personal anecdotes we've heard about the game that really bring it to life. And so it's not only a lovely experience from that aspect, but truly the gameplay itself is just so unique and fun and engaging, especially for people who may not play games all that often. And since it is a team-based game, you can have people who know what they're doing with games really guide people who don't play games very often. And I think it can really be a wonderful family experience, or just an experience with, like I said, with people who don't play games, but not to the point where it's telling them how to play, which I think is something that happens a lot with team-based games. The other thing I'll add is that, and this is one of those anecdotes that I mentioned before, we were told that the creator specifically said in the rules that there is no skin-to-skin contact. So you aren't to touch the grandfather's hand directly with your hand. And the reason we were told that this rule was made is because when the creator was testing it, his wife would consistently wait for him to close his eyes and then bite his hand. And so he wrote it into the rules so she could no longer do that, which is hilarious and charming. And it really just, it just sells the game further. I can't be happier with this game. I am just over the moon about it. I can't wait to bring it to GenCon and get a couple rounds in, because I really think you're going to like it.
So the first reaction that I had when I saw the game at Origins was, oh, the art is so reminiscent of Dixit. And that's what a lot of people have said. I mean, it's like, oh, this is another, game like Dixit. But I think the way that you convey that information is just so unique. I could see this having a place on my shelf, even though I do own and proudly own Dixit and expansions. It's a solid game. It's one that's kind of a favorite to get out with, especially a very light audience. I think that this one could definitely be up there as well. I just absolutely love the concept of how you transmit that information. I think that's where this really is going to hit for people. Really, I was glad to hear that this even exceeded your expectations, because it was one that I was thinking about bringing into my collection as well.
I think the really special part of it, too, is that as the opponents, you would think that when it's not your turn, because the grandfather and the child are on the same team, that it would be, like, hard to participate. But, like, truly, you're having to... So the grandfather has the advantage of feeling the actions that are occurring on the palm of their hand. But the other team has to kind of analyze what's happening, and therefore has to pay attention. And so, like, there's no downtime for you as a player of this game, and that's really cool. Even though the team they're interacting with one another, you as the opposing team still have to pay attention and focus on what's occurring and kind of imagine how that feels. So you're translating a photo into a feeling, and then also that feeling. So the empathy that needs to occur to kind of also feel what's happening it really does draw you together in a really, like, creative way.
So one question that I had was, can the opposing team see the photo that they're trying to replicate?
They cannot. Not until
See, that
end.
makes it, yep. Okay, that's what I was hoping to hear, but I wasn't quite sure how that worked.
Yes, so they get to see the photos at the same time the grandfather does. And all 8 photos are revealed at the same time. And at that point, the grandfather has to make a choice as to which one he thinks it is.
I love the whole sound of this. And when Danny was explaining it at Origins, I was very excited to hear about it. So that was in the palm of your hand. GenCon is going to be in less than 2 weeks. We are recording this episode, and the following Wednesday after it drops is when we are heading to Indianapolis. So it's coming soon. And I don't think either of us were really prepared to talk about, everything that we're looking forward to at GenCon. But I did want to, kind of have a couple of highlights that we're looking forward to so far. We will have a lot of coverage coming up. We will have a lot of unique things, I'm sure, to discuss from there, and all sorts of fun shenanigans that we get into out in Indianapolis, because I'm pretty sure it's both of our first times in the city, if
Absolutely.
I'm not mistaken.
And God willing, and the creek don't rise, we might even have some video content.
Yeah, hey, that's exciting. So as far as what I'm looking forward to most, again, it's always the people. I'm always looking forward to getting together with people, and connections I have seen that I did get to see at Origins, and I'm just excited to see again. Or, some connections that I've actually made online from AEG. AEG does not usually go to a lot of the conventions that we frequent, and Vladimir from AEG is going to be there. I met him very early in the pandemic. Some of the AEG content was some of my first review copies. So getting to meet him finally and getting to hear all about his adventures in Guatemala is really kind of exciting.
I love AEG too. That's going to be really exciting and fun to do that.
The continual hits that they produce is wild. I mean, every once in a while you get a game that's like, yeah, this was good, but just continuously, like, the stuff that they produce is solid content. So
absolutely
looking forward to some of their new offerings. I'm interested in Ready, Set, Bet. I've got Edge of Darkness expansion content that's coming from them. I think Wormholes is another one that I'm kind of intrigued by as well. So it'll be interesting to see what they have on tap for us while we're there. We're going to go and hang out with Tim Vernig again from Thunderworks Games. Really excited to see him again, as always. He's always amazing to hang out with and chat with. Great person as well. Looking forward to the games. There's a couple of games that we're going to be trying. Lunar Rush is one that we've talked about that we're really excited for.
Cannot wait for Lunar Rush.
Oh, yeah, absolutely same. I felt bad that we couldn't try it at Origins because I was kind of itching, but we hardly got anything played there.
No, we didn't.
And speaking of which, I'm just excited that we're finally going to get more game time in. I think it's just we've scheduled more. Well, we've even scheduled more games at this point.
That's true. I did bake some game playing into my schedule so that even if we don't get those late night manic game nights, there's going to be official stuff on the books.
Exactly.
One of which I'm really excited about.
Jamie, what did I miss? What are you looking forward to?
What is GenCon?
I think it's a big, like, gaming convention. Like,
we're going to this?
One of the big ones? One of the big ones? Yeah, in a couple weeks.
Right. Okay. I'm just kidding. I'm so unprepared for GenCon. I am going to be... Let's see. Let me think of this in chronological order. So Thursday, I'm going to be participating in a tournament for Conquest, which I am painting like mad to get these models ready. Just knowing that it's 2 weeks away is making me break out in a cold sweat thinking about how much more I have to do. And there was one point in my life where I so naively thought they were going to be ready for Origins. It's so cute.
That's adorable.
I know, right? So cute. Anyway, they should be ready for GenCon, at least passable, which I'm that's all I'm looking for at this point. That's going to be really fun. It's been picking up so much steam that Parabellum, the company that produces Conquest, has decided to start offering some really unique and like unattainable prizes for people who participate, and just generally support this tournament. So that's going to be really cool because I might own a piece of like Parabellum history that nobody else will have access to, which is awesome. One of the reasons I love them so much is because they support their game, which I know coming from the board game side of things sounds silly, but, there's a lot of companies out there who practice kind of what I would consider to be anti-consumer behavior, and it's not very fun. Then, let's see, I'm going to be testing what was previously known as a devilish surprise with CGE. I believe you are going to be doing that with me as well. I am really, really excited because it was just announced yesterday that Deal with the Devil is coming out this year from CGE. I was actually on stream with Ray from CGE, who, if you guys are not following their Twitch, you should absolutely go over there and check it out. As far as I know, she's one of the first people in the industry who is a dedicated streamer for a board game company, and I really do think that's going to be a trend we're going to start seeing more, or at least I hope so, because it's such fun content, and Ray is amazing at what she does. Beside that, during that stream they announced, I guess, so they were doing Dice Tower at the same time, and once they announced it on Dice Tower stream, they were able to announce it on the CGE stream, and so it's another game developed by Matouche, I believe is I can't remember his last name. He made Alchemists, and
which by the way is an amazing game. People need to go and try out Alchemist because it's such a amazing underrated game.
Those mad lads over at CGE are producing 2 games this year because, to hear it told, it is going to be releasing at Essenspiel, and it should be fully like in market by Christmas. In addition to Starship Captains, which is also coming out this year.
Wild.
Totally wild. So we will be testing that at some point. I'm going to also be on a live stream, like a live play with Ray and a couple other content creators. We're going to be playing Pictomania. I don't know how to play Pictomania. I'm going to go into it blind because I think that sounds fun. Just the whole chaos thing. I'm going to be... we're going to be on a Trans 101 panel again, which will be amazing. Always happy to support tabletop gamers. And I will be volunteering at a booth on Sunday, actually. So I'll be helping out at the Parabellum booth, which will be cool. But more importantly, things that you already mentioned, and part of the reason I went through my schedule rather than talk about it is because, the people. It's what we do it for. like you said, hanging out with Tim, hanging out with basically anybody. We just those are the best memories from these trips. And I'm really, really hoping we can catch lightning in a bottle again and do another, like late night game session with practical strangers and just, like find that magic again. Because that's what we do it for, right? Like, it's great to go for the business aspect of these things, but like the memories that you make in those spaces are like that's what you take with you. That's what kind of keeps you going when you're kind of bummed and you can't get any motivation in between these experiences.
Or sleep.
Right. Listen, sleeping is not something that happens at conventions. We know this.
We already know.
And hopefully we'll be able to get our room down to 50 degrees this time. We'll have to see.
I'm hoping so. I
already warned Rachel. I'll have to warn her again while we're packing so that she makes sure to put a winter coat in there. And
it's a natural habitat for Allie and I. I mean, we both want it like super cold and just to the lower extremities so we can get it.
I'm weirdly excited about the food truck thing. I hear there's some pretty cool food truck stuff that happens there, although I hear the lines are just buck wild. I told everybody in the CGE stream that everybody's laughing at me because I had a box of Cheez-Its in my backpack, but who's laughing now?
Mm-hmm.
So, just throwing that out there.
That's exactly it.
You gotta have con Cheez-Its.
Well, of course. And you always have to have snacks.
You gotta.
And you could probably sell those in line for quite a pretty penny.
$1 a Cheez-It.
I know you're smelling that food, so...
Simple supply and demand, people.
Yeah, exactly. I control the supply.
That's right. It's just like Catan. I have all the sheep, so you gotta give me all the bricks.
Well, nobody wants your sheep, so...
Yeah, you're right.
Anyways, looking forward to seeing everybody at GenCon. If you are attending GenCon and you do see us roaming around, please don't hesitate to stop and say hi. We are, in general, very friendly people, or at least we try to be. If we're not, please tell us, because, that's not how we want to be. We have been lied to. There are some people that I'm sure would probably tell us that. So, stay tuned, because coming up next, we have an interview with Jim Reed of Ravenwood Castle that you're not going to want to miss. Well, welcome back. On today's interview segment, we have Jim Reed, who is the owner of Ravenwood Castle and the Malted Meeple. Over the past 7 years, Malted Meeple has been a mainstay in the Northeast Ohio gaming scene as a board game cafe destination, known for its expansive library, friendly faces, and delicious milkshakes. We are here on its final day to talk with Jim about its history, memories, and what's next. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate having me on.
I appreciate you taking time out of your incredibly busy schedule. You've been running around like crazy selling games and trying to converse with everybody on this last day. What are you kind of thinking right now?
I've got the easy job. I'm just talking to people. We've got the team out there running around, and we're a little bit short-staffed, and they're still making everything happen exactly the way it should. So they're the ones working hard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's been nice being able to be back in here and celebrate with you one last time. So we're talking about the end. I want to kind of go back to the beginning, and why don't you tell us a little bit about the history of the Malted Meeple, why you founded it, what your name origins were, etc.
Sure. Yeah, the Meeple actually is an outgrowth of our other business, Ravenwood Castle. Ravenwood Castle is a country inn in the Hocking Hills area, and we have a board game library there, and we have a pub there. And we're also completely disconnected from the internet. So there's no cell service, there's no internet connection when you're down there. We put the games in order to give people things to do. And we really noticed how well it resonated with everybody. Sitting there disconnected from the internet, playing games, talking to the person you came with. we found a lot of people would come to be scared by that. They were scared by the fact that they couldn't get on the internet. And our joke was always, well, at least at one point in time, you liked the person you came with, so why don't you try talking to them a little bit? And it really worked. So the problem with the castle is it's kind of hard to expand. I mean, building another castle is a big expansion. So we wanted to be able to bring that service to a wider audience. And decided to kind of take the pub, if you will, and the board game library, if you will, and put them together and roll them out. And that was about the time that board game cafes started being a thing. You had Snakes and Lattes was kind of the original one in North America. And there weren't a whole lot other ones out there at that time. So we kind of got the idea actually back in 2014, about 8 years ago now, that we started talking about it. And Pam and I decided that we wanted to find a spot up here in the Hudson area and be able to serve the Northeast Ohio community. And we had a different location from the one we're in now. I don't know if you ever made it to that one.
I have memories from that location.
Okay. Our marketing people at the time for the castle, we had been talking to them and kind of just sitting around having a beer, and I mentioned the idea that we had for this cafe, and they bought that building we were in, and I called them, to talk about something else, and he was excited. He's like, you got to come see, I've got the perfect place for the cafe that you wanted to do. You got to come see it. And the basement of that building, that barn, that whole look and feel was just, it had a castle-like
it definitely
ambiance
did.
almost.
Yeah, I remember that fondly, and we had talked about that at work and that when we were kind of reminiscing about the old days and thinking back to that just old tavern kind of feel.
Yeah, and we kind of capitalized on that, and we made that the look and the feel, if you will. And we loved it. It was a great place. Horribly laid out and completely inefficient.
Yes.
And it was a nightmare to work in, and had a very small capacity. So we spent 3 years there, and when that lease was coming up to end, we decided that we really needed a bigger space. And we had started at that point thinking about adding on escape rooms. We had a couple of other things on the drawing boards that never actually happened, but that were, we needed a bigger place to do. So that's why we ended up here where we are now. We tried to recreate some of the look and the feel and the decor, but it is a little more of a standard building. I mean, you lose a little bit of that ambiance, but we were able to do a lot more here, a lot more capacity, a lot more people, that patio out there, which was, one of the things that we really were interested in when we bought the place.
Yeah. So the history of the name, what goes into the name? I mean, I think I know. I think one of my milkshakes actually has some in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. We sat down after we decided we were going to do it, and I was trying to come up with a name and, what do we call this thing? And of course, the trick is you don't want to be too inside baseball, and we actually might be a little bit on that side of the spectrum, believe it or not. But so I just put a whole bunch of words down on a piece of paper and started trying to combine them. And, of course, meeple obviously is the meeple in the board games. And malt is, one of the main ingredients in both our milkshakes and our beer. So, malted meeple, then the words kind of lined up next to each other. And I said, okay, that's the name.
Perfect. So you have a long history of working with charities such as Extra Life and the Alzheimer's Association. Extra Life, I actually have memories, and we'll get into memories in a minute, but I have memories of sitting at the old location at a Extra Life meeting. We had a couple of them over there, and playing some board games after we took care of business. So can you tell me a little bit more about your history of working with charities, why you prioritized it?
Yeah, that actually goes back to the castle. When we bought the castle, I was employed in an office job. I was running a law firm at the time, and Pam had gotten to the point where she wanted to get back into the workforce, and we were looking for something we could do that would be enjoyable for her and something that could be a long-term kind of retirement type situation for us. So we started looking to buy businesses, and there's a story behind it, but we ended up by accident buying the castle and starting that up.
Oh boy.
And it was just something that we really felt fortunate that we were in the position to be able to do that, and that we were able to have a job that we enjoyed and that was for us. And anyone who owns and runs their own business will tell you, you work 4 times as much as anyone else does, but it doesn't feel like it because you're doing it for yourself. So we felt really fortunate to be in that position, and we wanted to give back. So we, pretty early on, decided that we wanted to do some kind of a charity convention. And we started out actually with Child's Play, and that was a charity that it was created by the Penny Arcade people, the webcomic, and it was to raise money for children's hospitals. And we worked with them for a couple of years. The reason we picked them was our daughter, when she was born, ended up going into the neonatal internal care unit. She didn't need to. She just had, she needed the suntan. We like the joke. She had jaundice. They had to put her under one of the sunlights. But the main floor was struggling with an outbreak of RSV or something of the like, and they put her into the NICU just to keep her away from that. And we saw what was going on up there, and the people and the kids that needed to be there, and it just blew us away. So being able to give back to those people and help out in that regards was something that was important to us. So that's where we started with Child's Play, and we did that for the first, I want to say 3 years or so of our gaming convention, charity convention at the castle, which is called Hoop and Stick Con. We switched from Child's Play to Extra Life partway through for a variety of reasons, but we wanted to be able to stick with the children's hospitals. So for the last 10 years, actually this February was our 10th anniversary of Hoop and Stick Con. We have been raising money for either Extra Life or Child's Play, but basically Children's Miracle Network hospitals. We tied the Meeple into that a couple of times for the last 4 or 5 years. We never really had the same ability at the Meeple that you do at the castle to bring in the big dollars, so it was
right.
Like, a little more hit or miss there. And then this event for the final, adventure of the Meeple is to benefit Alzheimer's Association. We've been wanting to work with them for a while. My dad suffered from either Alzheimer's or early onset dementia. Pretty much anybody you talk to knows somebody that has struggled with it. Yeah. So it's one of those things where we wanted to see what we could do to help out, and this was a good way to get into that. Whether we continue working with them in some way, shape, or form in the castle is something we're trying to look into, because I'd like to do that. It's just a matter of figuring out how to make all those ducks line up in a row.
So are you going to continue with Hoop and Stick Con after?
Oh yeah, Hoop and Stick Con is our flagship event of the year at the castle, and it's our flagship charity event, and it will continue. We have talked about actually putting on something like a second Hoop and Stick Con, because the problem we have is we're at capacity. Every time we announce Hoop and Stick, and we'll announce it again, we're almost into July now, so we're basically about 5 weeks away from announcing pre-registration at Hoop and Stick, which is only available for alumni of either Hoop and Stick or Con in the Castle. Whenever we do that, it fills. So when we announce it to the public, our announcement is almost always, hey, Hoop and Stick is coming back, and you can't come because it's full.
Because it's completely full,
right?
And you're not allowed.
Right, and we hate having to do that. So, we may actually add on another convention or do something else that expands that fundraising. So.
Well, I'd certainly be there. We've talked about coming down to the castle on multiple occasions and haven't been able to make it happen. So another convention would be very nice for us.
Keep your eyes open. We do Con in the Castle in July, and the Con in the Castle isn't a charity convention, but it is a gaming convention, and it counts as being an alumni of our conventions. So you can get into Hoop and Stick if you've been to Con in the Castle.
Gotcha.
Yeah. You're second in the priority list. Alumni of Hoop and Stick get there first, but we still end up having usually about a third of the people coming to Hoop and Stick each year got in through Con in the Castle. So
awesome. Well, I want to share a couple of my memories, and I definitely want to hear some of yours as well over the 7 years. But I remember, again, that old location. The first time that I was there, I remember playing Castle Panic very early in my gaming days, Star Trek Panic, a couple of different games we had gotten out. I had some friends that were coming in from out of town, and we were entertaining them. And my friend Christina, Letitia, Andrew, and Phil, we were all just kind of hanging out. And Christina had a Diet Coke in one of the giant fish bowls because she kept ordering so many pint glasses full. They just brought her a fish bowl and said, "Here, you're going to go through this anyways."
Right.
And those were great memories. And again, the Extra Life meetings as well.
Right.
The first time that I was up at the new location up here was the first time that I actually met my friend and co-host Jamie Krause. and her wife. So it was really kind of a special memory for me. And then obviously the PFLAG game nights that we've had that you've helped host have been tremendously helpful to a lot of people. So, what are some of your memories?
That could be an all-day conversation.
Yeah.
And there's good and bad, of course.
Yeah.
Most of my memories, most of the ones that really stick out to me, center around, they're just little snippets, but they center around the idea of the weirdness of working in a place like this, or the weirdness of owning a place like this. Where else do you ever end up with someone saying something like, "Quick, catch the Death Star, it's rolling down the bar"? We've had the old chocolate Death Star candies, and one of them got away and was literally rolling down the bar. Making our milkshakes. We had a milkshake. Early on, we did 3 Star Wars milkshakes at a time until we got up to, I want to say, 18 or 24, and the rest of the team finally said, "Enough, Jim, we're not doing any more Star Wars milkshakes." But we had one that was the Tusken Terror, and I had the absolute best job with the milkshakes. I got to come up with the names, and someone would say, "That's great, what is that one made of?" And I said, "I've got no idea, I just named it, they have to make it." And we were trying to design the Tusken Terror, and I took a drink of it, and I said, "It's close, but it just doesn't. It needs more evil." And one of our GMs at the time knew exactly what I was talking about, and was able to go get the cayenne pepper, and that's where the cayenne pepper came from. With that, yeah. So those kind of things, you don't get those in a corporate office. No one talks about making more of an evil milkshake in a corporate office. Death Stars don't roll down the bars, in a corporate office. So that kind of thing. And a lot of them just are little snippets like that fall under that category, because that's really what has been the best part of both the castle and the Meeple is they're different. It's a different kind of job. It's a different kind of environment. And we tie back into what I was saying earlier. We work, we being the whole team, but Pam and I is what I'm talking about right now. We work harder than we ever did before, but
you enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And it's for us. It's for yourself. It's for your own team. It's not for a nameless person, in an office 100 miles away. It's our team, it's our group, it's our family. And that's pretty cool.
I can definitely sympathize with that. I guess empathize is more the better word. But doing the podcast has been like a second job for me. But it's for me, it's for my audience, it's for the community. And there's just something so incredibly satisfying about doing that.
Well, and you're creating it. It didn't exist until you did it.
Exactly.
And then you do it and it exists. Yeah. And that's a thing. I mean, that's, I'm not an artist. I tend to do some photography, but creating something that wasn't there before and putting your own expressions into it, it's pretty powerful.
It really is.
Yeah. And that's what makes it fun. That's what makes all of the rest of the issues that go along with running a business worth doing.
Yeah, and you can step back and you can say, yeah, this is a pain to do, and yes, this is work, but at the same time, it's for me, and I'm going to get a good result out of it. Right.
And you're going to get something that you want to have or that you think is important that maybe isn't being done elsewhere or by other people.
Well, perfect. And I do want to kind of come back talking about those PFLAG game nights, about the importance of having a place that's safe for all to attend. And I think you've done an excellent job over the past 7 years of providing that. What do you think it's so important to have spaces like that and to provide those spaces?
Oh, that's a loaded question, isn't it?
Sorry.
No. It's fine. It's an important question. It's always been important to have those kinds of places. It's always been one of the number one things from our standpoint that went into the businesses. And I guess inclusiveness is the word you're going to look for. And we've always wanted to be inclusive of everybody. And that doesn't just mean, genders or races or religions or anything else. It means interests and ideologies. One example from the castle, we had some people that would complain early on about, you're not wearing period garb. All your staff should be in period garb. Or other people that would say all your staff should be in polos or whatnot. And our whole point was, and I wrote an article about it, was we want people to be comfortable. And I remember being behind the bar at the castle, and I was wearing a Dungeons and Dragons t-shirt, and someone came up and they were wearing their Dungeons and Dragons t-shirt, and they said, "I love this place because I know I can wear this shirt here, and no one's going to make fun of me or pick on me or anything else."
Yeah.
And that's hugely important. It was hugely important 10 years ago. I think it's more, trying to get too political, but it's more important now than it was 10 years ago because we as a society and a world tend to be going in the wrong direction,
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
So it's always been important to us at both places to have an environment where we basically tolerate everything except intolerance. You know, the number one rule, the only rule in both of our places is don't be a jerk. Don't disrupt other people in any way, shape, or form, whether it be with your ideas, with your behaviors, or anything else. And that's one of the reasons we put the Meeple together, too, because we wanted a place like that here in Hudson. The original intent had been more, again, from the gaming side, the geek safety, if you will, versus the inclusiveness as you look at it now. But we have been inclusive that way as well. You know what I mean? But when I grew up, you played D&D in your parents' basement, and you didn't tell anyone at school you were playing D&D.
Oh, exactly.
You
exactly.
know?
I remember that.
Yeah, and that's what we didn't want to have. We wanted, hey, there's a place you can come. I've got daughters, and when we got them into gaming, I wanted them to be able to come to a place and have fun with that.
Exactly.
And again, it's weird that the gaming side of that has become more mainstream, so having a safe place from the gaming side is less important, but the everything else side of inclusiveness has gone the other direction.
Oh, completely.
And having a safe place for that is more important. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and thank you for providing that. I know from our perspective, it's incredibly important, and it's incredibly appreciated what you've helped us do over the past couple of it's been almost a year now since we had the first one. So
right.
It was pretty awesome. So one final question: what's next for you?
That's a question with a lot of answers as well. The main reason we're actually closing the Meeple down, believe it or not, is because we have other things we want to do. We've got other places we want to be in life at this point, both personally and professionally. Personally, we're looking at stepping back a little bit and kind of going into semi-retirement, being able to do some of the travel that's been, put off, both because of the pandemic and because of 10 years worth of, running two businesses. My guess would be we'll probably do that for a month or 3, and then we'll get a little bit bored. And I have yellow legal pads full of other ideas of things we want to do, both at the castle and as completely new businesses. What will come of those? I do not know at this point. I've got a couple of things I'd really like to start off with, but we got to see, where Pam's at and what her thoughts are, and where we go in the next couple of months. So.
Well, whatever you wind up doing, good luck. Be safe on your travels. And again, thank you for 7 years of memories.
It was our pleasure. Thank you for being a patron. We appreciate it.
So I think that's going to do it for us today. Please take a look at the website, cardboardtime.com, for more information. Check out our Instagram and Twitter at cardboard_time, our Board Game Geek podcast page, and our Board Game Arena group. All you have to do is search for Cardboard Time on those websites, and you will find us. Any questions, suggestions, or ideas for discussion topics, please email cardboardtime@gmail.com. We love getting those letters and, nice little conversation starters from you as well, which will probably come in handy coming up here pretty soon. Jamie, how can people get a hold of you on your socials?
The easiest way to get a hold of me is basically just go into the search bar of any social media and just look up Jamie Daggers. But no, for real, my Instagram is @JamieDaggers. My Twitter is @Jamie_Daggers. And those are the two probably most active you'll find me on. But yeah, outside of that, did I say Twitter or Twitch? Because on Twitch, I'm Jamie Daggers as well. I'm on Twitch every week, painting minis.
Doing the thing, making dumb jokes. Kind of basically what I do here. Just, you can see my face and my hands in the minis that I'm painting. But anyway. There you go.
Yeah, so those are all my socials.
So, as always, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for another episode of Cardboard Time. Happy gaming.